What up, world? My name is Timothy DeJesus.
Hi everyone, Aldric here.
Hello folks, it's Kevin Kwok here.
Hi, this is Jeremey Sea. I just wanted to say this about bottoms-up perspectives. It's about real lives, real journeys, and real perspectives.
The whole idea behind bottoms-up perspective was from the word kampai, or in Asian culture, oftentimes we drink until the bottom of our cup is empty and we turn it over. So it's very much like just cheers, right? And building relationship. And that's what we're all about, is building authentic, solid relationships on a global level and being able to see things from a global perspective.
And no, we're not Alcoholics Anonymous.
We are here to be the voice of everyone.
I love the idea that we're real people and we get to share our experiences with real people just like you.
So we look forward to having you join us. On LinkedIn, so episode 20 of Bottoms Up Perspective. And today's episode is the hybrid parent. And we have our guest, TaJuanna here. So I'm super excited. So
thank you.
Let's start by having TaJuanna kind of introduce yourself. Tell us about your professional role. And
Well, thank you all for having me here. It's really great to be in your company. I've had some conversations with each of you, so that's been fun to get to know you. TaJuanna Taylor, I help executives, teams, entrepreneurs, creatives, and those inspiring, right? Really get a focus on their business. What is it that you're dreaming, you're envisioning, and where it is that you need to be going, right? So putting that vision to action. Otherwise, it's a beautiful fantasy, but it's not going to do any good for anybody, right? So using project management is the basis of all of it, the coaching, the inspiration, the consulting, the resilience comes from overcoming many life adversities. And now we are all facing, right, a very common theme and trying to figure out how in the world do we do this whole COVID parenting work thing, right? Like what, what does it mean? And so that's what brought us all here today. Seeing some of your other posts and episodes has been really enlightening. Really enjoyed what you're doing.
That is awesome. So let's start by just sharing with us. I know Tim, why don't you introduce your little girl there?
Yeah, new guest.
Say hi.
Morning, Isabel.
Hi, Isabel.
Hey, Isabel.
Hi.
How are you doing? Are you hanging out with Daddy?
Oh,
She's beautiful.
Who needs the teddy bear when you have that? Goodness. Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
All right, I'll be right back, guys. Let me tuck her in.
All right.
Past her bedtime.
That's so good.
All right, there we go.
Bedtime.
Bedtime. That's phenomenal.
That's authenticity right there. Just walk away from the screen. I gotta go tuck my baby in.
That was not staged.
Definitely not staged.
No.
Let's just fill up the airtime while Mr.
Yeah.
Jesus get back.
So
Go ahead, Kevin.
why don't we all just kind of share a little about our either some of us are parents and some of us are not. But let's start with our first question, right?
Okay.
How important is parenting to you?
Very.
Yep.
Wow.
So which way do we want to go? Let's go with Jeremy.
Jeremy,
I'll go first. It's a weird question because I think parenting, or rather choosing to be a parent or choosing to bring kids into this world, it's probably, you got to think really hard about it. And if you're not in it all the way, please don't do it, right? It's a terrible thing to do if you're not ready. Oh no, I wouldn't say that if you're not ready.
Right.
You haven't figured it out. Nobody's ever ready, right? Yeah, nobody's ever ready, right? If you haven't figured out, how important it is. Well, very important, right? I think that's the short answer because it's a life you are to be responsible for, if not till they become full-grown adult, if not the rest of their life. These are these are people's life. You're talking about your very own offsprings. Very important. But there's so many aspects to it. It's quite hard to discuss everything here. But I think being a parent, and you need to really be responsible to ensure that your kids grow up fine, that they will be not a menace to society at the very least, but valuable contributor to society. So it all boils down to parenting. So it's definitely very important because one person can make all the difference, right? Imagine you're raising a Hitler. So that's the thought.
Well, I have no doubts that Hitler, in today's terms, is an influencer of some sorts, but value, not values. No F. Value, not values. That's a different thing.
So that's my take. For now.
That's a good
That
take.
is such a scary thought. Like, I think I'm getting chill bumps just from thinking about that.
Sorry for that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's true.
I mean, it's
So
very
I'm
real.
just gonna catch up real quick for Timothy. So I just asked our first question. So how important do you feel parenting is? So since we skipped you, why don't you go next?
All right. Well, I mean, parenting is kind of everything, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, that's if you don't raise your little ones right, what are we doing here? That's kind of how I feel about it. So, I mean, my little girl's everything to me. I think you guys can see that. So, I make sure that she's my number one priority. I'm trying to achieve a lot of goals in my career, but she comes first. At the end of the day, if I had no money but she had love, I'm okay with that too. So, obviously, it's not the life I want to live for her, but I also don't want to chase dreams for myself and not provide for her at the same time and give her all the love and support she needs. That's more important than money.
That is so good.
That's
Good
super
stuff.
good.
Yes.
That was a lot of heart there, Timothy. Thanks.
Just
Awesome.
true.
Yeah, but it shows that your heart. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, TaJuanna?
Definitely parenting is super important because, like Timothy said, and starts so early, right? And for me, it's like, you don't wait till they get 12, 16, 15 and try to instill discipline and values and right, those type of things. It starts early. I mean, before they're even speaking, they're watching, they're absorbing. And coming from a family where my dad was U.S. Army. And so I tell everybody, I'm an American girl, right? The world is a rainbow. Like, I am here for all of that. And I strive to teach my daughter the same things. Like, we treat everyone. Would you want someone to treat you different because your hair was red and curly? Would you want someone to, like, all those things are important. We're all different. We're all unique. And those are the value, like you said, value, right? That's the basis, respect. The basis of everything. Values over money always. Yes, we need it. We live in a first world country. We cannot sit here and say that money doesn't matter, but money is not everything, right? So when we do life, like wealth for me is not just about the financial prosperity. It's about who can I do life with, doing it in community, being an Army daughter. I didn't grow up with grandmother. I didn't grow up with auntie. I didn't grow up with cousin. Community, neighbors, schoolhouse, church, those were always my family. And so it's like, if you can't reach out to somebody to help you do life, celebrating the good times, cry on the shoulder when you're bad, and then the silent ones that are just like, I'm waiting, like double Dutch, right? Like, whenever you need me, tag me in. If we can't do life like that, I don't know what we're living for. I don't know how people do it. I really don't. So parenting for me is all about that reality that the world, it's bigger than us. This life that we're living, it involves us, but it is not just about us. Hard stop.
Great.
That's good. You, Jen?
I don't know. That was so good. I don't know if I can follow that one up. I think TaJuanna covered a lot of things that definitely is in my heart in regards to parenting, is making sure that my kids have every possible experience that would help expand their mind and their horizons, to see beyond just the country that we live in, but to really see the world.
Yes.
And that we are all unique, but we're not more special and we're not more better than anyone else. And we're all here on this, God's green earth trying to do our best to show kindness and serve others. And I think as far as relevance, it's one of the most important things that you could ever do. Like, like you all were saying, Timothy, Jeremy, raising offspring that turn out not only to not be like Hitler, but like really, truly, bring goodness to the world. I think we're here to show love to others. And so I want kids that reflect that heart. Like you were saying, TaJuanna. So yeah, I mean, it's one of the most important things. Someone with a lack of parenting can cause a lot of dramatic things, shoot up a theater or a school, or change a whole a whole society. So it does all go back to the home. Every single problem in society goes back to the home. So, and how even their emotional, psychological, all the different needs were met. That does fall on the parent's shoulder. How did they meet the needs of that child? Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. About you, Aldric?
The least qualified to make any comments, but because I don't have any. I'm not a parent.
Let's talk about baby Aldric.
Right.
When you were being raised.
You've been a kid.
It's all about having the right perspective.
All of you have gone through the kind of contents that I've produced in terms of my interaction with my aunt, whom I adore a lot. When I was growing up, I felt like she's the role model. But probably a little something off. I've never mentioned that I adopted 2 young kids last time. They were in the Philippines. They were in the city of Baseco, just off Manila. I remember when I first met them. It was through a school program. They were hungry. They were very hungry because in the environment that they are in, there was literally like nothing. So, but they had dreams and stars in their eyes. So when I first met them in the Philippines, in Manila, they were talking about music lessons, like violin and piano, and they were talking about how life turned for the better after graduation, which is pretty much the usual stuff. But I think the most cruel thing the young can have these days is that we can see through the media that there's a lot of things, good things in life, but they just don't have the avenue to achieve it. So that it's a twin. So it's Christine and Christina. I still remember, but I don't speak to them that often now. I bought them a piano. I mean, of course, I couldn't afford 2 at the time, so I bought 1, and they practiced it religiously. It would put a lot of first world kids to shame. I would say, they would go to school and they would come back for practice. They practiced 5 hours, so they would show me how their fingers are like it becomes like this, because if you understand piano, this is the natural stance. So they would show me their hands and how things are, and they would ask like how to interpret this score, like how should we play this? Is it to 120 beats per minute, or is it? So it expanded my horizons, not just theirs, mine. It made me reflect a lot on my musical journey with violin and piano. Like, oh my gosh, they're practicing like 5 hours every day. I'm like struggling with 3 hours a day on top of my studies and on top of what I'm trying to sell outside. So I think people having this kind of exposure allowed me to appreciate a wider horizon of what parenting should be. Not to say that I'm right, but I truly appreciate things like this. And just as a logical segue, recently I've been getting a lot of questions on Cura in this kind of genre. So what do you do when you're falling behind in life? And I have tons of questions within that same commutation. I feel very sad when I receive such questions, because it just shows how we as role models in society are actually trying to nurture our young that's coming into the workforce or the economy as participants. Like, I shouldn't even be receiving these questions. I'm an absolute stranger, but these questions just keep coming, so it shows. So I think this is a very valuable episode. Like, there are no correct answers, but so long as we can expand our horizons, we're actually doing something good for the next generation. I don't have any kids, but I try to do whatever I think is the right thing to do. I might be wrong, like my comments on Hitler and things like that might be insensitive, especially if we have any German audience. I understand that, but I think sometimes let's just embrace a broader perspective of history and people. That works.
Oh, I can't get it. I was trying to put. It's Jeremy's fault.
Sorry, man. Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
No, I
That's my
mean
introduction.
that's kind of the extreme, and but yes.
Yeah, so for me, I think parenting is everything, right? I think all of the world's problems starts from parenting. So I think people don't think about that. I think parenting plays a big part, a big impact, right? And certain people make it even if they don't have good parents, just because the way they're designed.
Yeah.
But there are people that really need good parenting. And our perspectives, our identity. When we talk about personal branding, right? I own a marketing agency. And we work with people all the time on brands and different things like that. But when you think about it, personal branding starts from the home. Yeah. That's how, when you're born, you're naked, you're empty. You're an empty vessel. Yeah. And if you've, I know Jeremy, Tim, Jen, TaJuanna, you guys have kids. So you remember when that child comes out, they don't know anything. They're completely 100% dependent on you to survive. And they soak in everything, right? And you slowly notice, like, they start smiling. And it's like, oh, how they learn how to do that, Yeah. And then slowly you start seeing attributes of yourself in your kids, like, I see myself in my boys every single day. I see my wife in my boys every single day. But those are learned behaviors because they see mom and dad do it. Yeah. And it's not like they were just born to do certain things. There's a lot of things we just pick up from our parents. So when people aren't good parents, a lot of times I go, dude, that's an excuse. It does matter. You taking the time for your kids does matter. So stop making excuses and just do it. So I think parenting is important. So that's how I feel. But the second question I have is, since we're talking about parenting, let's start with, and it might get a little sensitive, but I want to hear about, what's your childhood like? What was your parents like?
Hey, we had a question from the audience real quick.
Yep.
Sergio asked a great question.
Go ahead. Let's see here.
So Sergio said, how do you
balance the consumption of digital media and technology for your kids growing up as a digital natives?
That's a great question.
That's a good one.
I am not answering that one. I have an F in that field, okay? Because right now, TaJuanna, with all of us stuck at home, Timothy, they gotta watch, in order to get work done sometimes, because they're not even in school. So anyway, I wasn't going to answer that. So that's all I'll say.
So you answered.
So my daughter's almost 6, and she doesn't know how to use a remote yet, because intentionally. I try to use whatever hands-free time I do have. I try to use that in being present, because we're so digital, right? And work from home at online virtual business. So like when I'm having calls, what I do to help us, when mommy's on call technology, she gets technology time, right? So like even right now, she's got her headphones on, she's on the iPad. That's how we're having this conversation, right? But then when I'm off, I really strive to put the phone down. I really strive to say, okay, what, you want to code, like, what do you want to do, honey? What interest do you have in this moment? Because at the end of the day, she's going to get absorbed in technology in some way, whether it be home with me, whether it be outside of me, as she grows up in, age and schooling. You can check out Chromebooks, after I think second grade now, they send you home with Chromebooks and stuff. So that way a family, isn't always able to say, I don't have, the resource or whatever. Granted, there's other layers to that, but I strive at present, and so far have been able to do it, to allow us to have as much time, people time, conversational time as possible. And then at the end of the evenings, I've got no problem with her. I know people argue with this, but I've got no problem with her winding down. I'll put the timer on YouTube Kids, and when it goes off, she knows, sit it down, go and turn over, where I can't make her go to sleep, but she knows that's the end of it for the evening. So I just try to make it work in balance, if you will, with what my functional needs are as well, and allow her that, not everything has to be a learning. Not every time she's on the iPad, it's not ABC Mouse. Sometimes it's Kids Bop, right? So it's just whatever it needs to be. But that's how I juggle her digital use.
And I think one of the key things too for the parents out there, is guilt. I think a lot of the problems we have is personal guilt. And I think we have to understand during these times, as we're talking about the hybrid parent, we're working professionals, teachers, and parents, okay, during this pandemic. And we don't give ourselves enough credit. It's not easy. So the truth is, don't make it too hard on yourself. Don't have guilt. There are times where the electronics will help. And, electronics not the root of all evil, right?
Right.
It's our parenting a lot of times is the root of the evil. So I love what TaJuanna said. It's just like, hey, balance it out. Are you giving your kids personal time? Are you able to put aside, and we're all guilty of your phone or your computer yourself after work, and then investing it back into your kids. And I think that's important. Maybe make it where maybe it's the weekend, and I think a lot of times, even looking back at the past, and my parents and everything, right? A lot of times I think our parents are more guilty than us feeling like they didn't do their job. And when you grow up, you start talking to your parents and you go, oh, Mom, you felt guilty about that? Oh, I didn't even think anything about it, So I think a lot of time it has to do with our personal guilt, so.
For me, I definitely have tried it. I was just going to say something real quick to tell in what she said. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they shouldn't be on the electronics. We really need to do some creative stuff. And so I'm like, I'm going to have you guys do some drawing, or let's play with slime, or here, I'm going to let you paint. Mommy has to be in this meeting, and then I'll come back out and it is a catastrophe.
Not unsupervised.
Yeah, that's the hard part is when, when we do have to work, especially like, even if it's just 4 hours that day, what do kids do for 4 hours? Right. And like some of the stuff that I've given them to do, I mean, they can turn a little bitty project into like this humongous mess that, and I'm like, okay, well, they did something different. I'll just clean it up, or they can help me clean it up, but it is scary. I'm like, no, just play your Xbox. Please just play the Xbox. Don't touch anything. Don't look at anything, anyway. Yeah, it's crazy. So scary.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I can totally relate to all that. And guess what? I think I've told everyone before, I'm a gamer dad. So
gamer dad.
They get all the leeway they want on digital and gaming and stuff. In fact, I do encourage that. I know I play games with them. It's just a way to bond. So I'm gonna be worse than F grade there. So the police in the house will be my wife, the mom, Oh, okay.
There
But
it is.
but what exactly is the medium you are consuming, right? The digital technology part is a double-edged sword. So depending on what you give them, that will determine whether it's good or bad. Yes, we do set time limits. We do give them time. For example, after meals, they get half an hour to wind down, etc. When over the weekends, they get to, play what they want. But even that, they fight, right? So I'm sure Jen understands that. Even when they're on the Xbox, they fight. So I think it's really hard. But we just have to be aware that this is part of life now. Back when we were kids, running around, climbing trees and stuff like that was the norm. But you don't get to do that much now, not because of the distraction, also because of the pandemic. Well, no excuses there, but it's just different. Every generation growing up differently is something we just need to monitor. And Kevin's right. Sometimes I do feel guilty. We could be doing more things like art, that kind of thing. But that's where parenting comes in. It takes a lot of time and effort. You could be on the games with them, but you're not present. Then what's the point?
You're
Right?
killing
Yeah.
your kid's character.
Sometimes I play games with them, and then halfway I'm like falling asleep, and then my kids are like, "Hey, Dad, wake up, do your part," that kind of thing. So it's really goes down to the balance and what you let them do. Yeah, that's my take.
Yeah.
So Jeremy, I am the opposite. So I'll be playing with my older son. I know you posted you play NBA 2K. So
Yeah.
So that's kind of my pastime sometimes because I love basketball and now I don't get to play. So I got into NBA 2K. So I'll play with my 8-year-old and I forget he's 8 and I'm like destroying him. And then I'm like hurting his feelings and because of my competitive nature. And I was like, okay, this isn't fun for him. And I'm like, I'm playing against an 8-year-old, and then now he doesn't even like playing with me. So,
but Kevin, that's part of parenting too, right? That's part of parenting. There's a lesson to be learned there, right?
There is.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Oh,
Go, Timothy.
sorry. I was gonna say I'll tell you. Well, go ahead, TaJuanna. I'll answer. Go ahead. You tell me.
I was just gonna piggyback on Kevin. Like I'm a non-traditional mom in that sense, right? Like, yes, I have on my lip gloss and I've got on my pretty shirt, but like if we're at the playground or she's scootering on one foot down a hill, and I'm like, go, and if she happens to hit a bump and falls, I'm like,
yay!
Get up. You know what I mean? Get up, keep going. Your bone isn't broken. You're not bleeding. She's also a gymnast in training. Well, prior COVID, right? So it's just like, listen, it's gonna hurt, but that's where you get your oomph. That's where you get your grit. That's how you feel. How to move and vibe with that scooter, and that's how you do it. I don't run, and it's funny because people will be looking like, oh, and I'm like, she's all right, everything's fine, keep moving, and she doesn't have a big old hissy fit. Because she has learned, from 0 on, right? They react the way we react. So if I run around and I'm chasing her every time she gets ready to tumble, or, I'm trying to catch her every time she's, it's getting ready within reason, right? But every time she's about to tip off of a monkey bar or something, she's going to have fear. She's going to have fear of just about everything. But when she hits that fall and she's like, oh, well, I feel that time's not that bad. I'll get up and do it again because it didn't really hurt, or it didn't really hurt me. Now I'm going to be willing to do it again because and mommy's over there in case something really is needed. So I'm with you there. It's like, and she's so competitive. Sometimes I'm like, it's not a competition. If I didn't join in the race, it's not a race, daughter. Like, what are you? But everything, yeah, she's very competitive.
So I'll tie in Kevin's question before I cut him off with the other question into the answer with this question, and then we got another one from Carol.
Yep.
Yeah. But my upbringing, I actually spent a lot of time on screens. I played a ton of video games when I was a kid, like a ton. And so, I grew up okay. I grew up super competitive. I think, video games, whether you realize it or not, can teach you tenacity and resiliency, whether people understand that or not. The truth is, like if you go and you try to beat a game 50 times and the 51st time you finally freaking get it, as a kid, that's like, yes, I did it. And that builds tenacity. It does build character. So, I don't mind screen time probably as much as other parents. I know it's a big thing in today's society, but like Kevin said, you can't feel too guilty about it. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody's stuck at home. What I do try to do is I try to get out with my daughter. I take walks with her. Like what I'll do is I'll be like, all right, we're going to take a 2-mile walk to Dollar Tree. And then you can spend $5 at Dollar Tree. So there's something in it for her.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, she gets exercise in. And, it's $5. It's not anything major. But to her, it's a big deal. It's like, oh, cool. Like, there's something in it for me.
Yep.
So, and the tough part is, even as parents, like, there's a park 10 minutes from us. And it's closed down. It's taped off. So I can't even take her to the park. So, I mean, what can you do? I mean, now I'll play video games like you guys said. I'll play the video games. We're playing Nintendo Switch Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild together. Love it. It's great bond. You know what I mean? So I'm not as hard on kids' screen time, I guess, because my upbringing was I spent a ton of time on screens. And, I mean, I think I'm okay. I mean, I'm a little jacked up, but who isn't, right?
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
So Carol here, let's answer her question. Trying to balance and create a flexible schedule. Any suggestions? So I'll let the mom answer this one. Moms.
Which one when you would go first?
Go ahead. You go first.
So what I learned, do not have back-to-back calls. That just allows too much time for them to go, unsupervised, if you will, because I can only do this, right? If I'm really on the phone or on a virtual call like this, I'm really just kind of doing this. When I made that mistake of having back-to-back calls, I got up from that 3-hour span, and her room was completely renovated. It was,
yeah.
I said I have to take a video of this and send it to my people because no one's going to believe me. Everybody's going to think I made this up. She's like, her muscles, her, just the whole gymnast thing, right? She's she's crazy. So I learned that at minimum, I have to put a minimum 30-minute break between calls so that I can get up, check in on her, see if she needs a snack, restroom break, just bio breaks and mental breaks for ourselves, check back in, make sure ABC Mouse is still rolling, our kids about whatever the technology time is for that stint. But making sure you have breaks between your work, whatever your work is, when you're working from home, will help significantly because it lets them know I'm still accessible. I am still paying attention. You are important, but that consistent no attention, that was a mess.
You should see my basement right now. Like I told my boys, I go, people need to see this. If I took a picture of this right now and I put it on social media, there would not be one parent. I mean, there wouldn't be one parent that would be okay with that. They would be like, do you just let your kids do whatever they want? And I'm like,
why not?
I'm a super,
Jeremy's okay with it.
So I see it as a mess and they see it as creativity. I mean, it is absolutely every toy that we own, and they're 5 and one's getting ready to turn 8 next week. Every toy we own is out, and they have built a city.
Yes.
And they don't like to clean it up, and I have to be like,
destroy the city, Mom.
And I just trying to get to the bathroom, I mess something up, and then one of them falls apart, and it's like, I have to become like an army general because everything has a spot. It's very well organized. Mm-hmm. Okay. I love all the containers and the organizational systems, and we have a place for everything. And all of a sudden everything is out of place. And I've been in here for 2 hours working, wasn't paying attention. And now I have to deal with that, and make them clean that up. And they don't want to clean up. They want to make creative messes.
Yeah.
And so
it's the city.
The city.
It's the city, so that they don't have to clean it up. That is a city. And I'm like, I don't see a city in that, but okay. So it's like, trying to find the balance of allowing kids to be creative, but not unsupervised for very long, teaching them to clean up, to be, to have discipline, because we're all trapped in this house, for the most part. And so, I have to allow them to have creativity, but not go too crazy. I think something that's definitely helped me is kids I've been told over and over, they like routines. They need systems. And that also helps me as a parent. So I base everything off of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I don't want to have anything going on during those times, so I can make sure and stop and make sure that they're still eating semi-nutritional or have full bellies so that they're not causing me trouble during work. I think meal times are very important, especially if the family is home together and is able to eat those together. I think it's wise. I think having reward systems in place, that's something that I've been trying to implement, of where they can earn points for getting up, getting their clothes on, making their beds, brushing their teeth, making sure that even though we're at home, we're not going to wear pajamas all day, every day, maybe sometimes, but for the most part, a reward system to where, you might be able to earn 10 points a day plus some extra. And then at the end of the month, that turns into money. So we might go out to eat as a family, or you could choose a toy with that. And they love physical. They love physical money. My boys don't care about stickers. They don't want stickers. I want money.
I taught them well.
That's good parenting. Good parenting.
So we're actually doing on Etsy, they have money that you can print out on a printer and you can hand it to them. And at the end of the month, they trade that money in and we count it out to see what they actually get. So like 300 points or $300 actually equals $20. So, I'm trying to figure out how to fit that into my budget, but you have to have something.
You got inflation rates.
I'm like, how is this going to work out? Because, maybe we'll get to, it has to be something where they feel it's worth it and they're a little bit spoiled. So it can't be just, a $3 toy. I mean, they have to have, so anyway, I'm trying to figure all that out still, but I think just having that schedule in place of this is what I expect in the morning. And this is what I expect before you to go to bed. And then I'm going to make sure you have all your meals and snacks, that you're drinking your water. Provide maybe one art thing a day where you stop and do something with them, or you set it up to where they can do it on their own, depending on their age. And then having tablet time, like you were saying, is good. But having it like structured times. Okay, now I think, you've done some of this other stuff. You've played, you've used creativity. Go have an hour on your tablet while mommy's on a Zoom call. So, I think it's just playing with what works with your family. But really, if you can all be together, eat together, it's they love it. Kids will just love it.
They eat it up.
So
they eat it up. But that meal prep, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head, because, kids, when we can go past hungry and just kind of feel uncomfortable. When they get hungry, it's a whole other drama, right? So I try to meal prep. Like I think about the week, and I literally try to fix things and have those cold and warm snacks that you can put container or sit out on the counter and, and communicate. Okay, hey, it's about 11 o'clock now. You can go and get morning snack, or you can go and, and she knows it's on her shelf. She knows what container it's in. She knows, like, even in the morning, if I have to start early if I choose to start early for whatever reason, when she wakes up, I'll already have the cereal poured in the bowl. I'll have the milk in a cup, right, with a lid on it in the refrigerator. And granted, again, she's 5, almost 6, right? So it's all relative. But she knows her bowl's on the cereal. Her bowl's in the cereal on the table. Just go get the cup, pour it, and move on to the table where her paperwork packet or whatever she needs to get started. So having some type of structure for your child, depending on how your child learns, depending on what your child's interests are. But having those meals and snacks prepared in advance, huge help with just, that lack, that to prevent that need to pull on you for every little moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that sugar isn't necessarily a good thing, because right now I really don't want to go to the dentist yet. So, we want to take care of our teeth at home. Doing a plate of fruit and eating it with them. If you stop for a snack time with them, can be very meaningful.
Yes.
Cheese and fruit, or peanut butter and apples, or just something like that. I do go a little overboard on the sugar sometimes, which is why teeth brushing is very important in our house. But like, I'll buy some Rice Krispie treats that every once in a while, when they've just been phenomenal that day, I'm like, why don't you guys go grab some chocolate, or you can pick out a couple pieces of candy, or
Or a
here's
whole
some
bag.
Rice Krispie. Okay, so this week I bought a bag of gummy worms, because we all love gummy worms. And so, I'm going to surprise them with that. So I bring in treats every once in a while. I'll go in a morning and bring them back some donuts. I don't believe in making that a habit, but it's so special for them. They just, every once in a while, we pick up a Happy Meal from McDonald's. It's just things that make them feel like that it's special, it's fun, we're thinking about them, we know it's hard for them, that we're always working. So that's
Involvement is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Involvement,
Yes.
right? And even
Together.
communicating our schedule to them, like, so here's what today is going to look like, right? Even preparing for this call when I picked her up from camp. All right, so mommy's got a late call tonight. So we're going to go ahead and have dinner. We're going to get your bath out of the way. You'll be able to have, iPad time, whatever, show you want to watch that, from the list, you can do that. I'm going to ask you to have your new headphones, because we can't have a whole lot of noise, but that's what it's going to look like tonight. That's not every night, but she was like, okay, Mom, that's fine. Because we we're in a habit of communication. And, some days she feels great about it, like today, and other days she's like, oh, it's not always peachy, but communicating is important, and it helps them with their processing, their thinking, their decision making, and even their perception of what it is that you're doing, right? Well, Mommy let me know that after this period of time, or after that's over, then it's about us again, versus constantly that push away, like, oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this. I think it was, Doc McStuffins, I'll never forget, the mom on that cartoon was always like, I always have time for you, sweetie, right? And that just runs into my mind, because that mom, she was very much a professional, right? She had business going, but anytime her child, had something, and I'm sure she taught her what's critical and what's not critical, right? But she always had time for her child. And I think that's something that if we can remember to just always make time, right? It might not always be the ideal time, but to always make time for our children, because we brought them here. They didn't apply for the position.
I think something that I've learned, and I know that you would agree with this, TaJuanna, but also just being around different cultures, is teaching my kids the importance of working, teaching them what hard work looks like. And I'm not saying I'm like the hardest worker. Kevin definitely outworks me like by a million. But like actually communicating with the kids. This is what Mommy and Daddy are doing. This is why we're doing it. See this food that you're enjoying right now, that you're putting in your mouths? It's because we are working. And one of my kids goes, I don't like J29 creative. And I go, I know, he's my 5-year-old. And I go, you know what? J29 creative is the reason that you live in this house, and it's the reason that you have this food and these snacks that you're getting. And he shut up. And I go, and so I make sure that they understand. I give them chores sometimes to do. You need to, it may be simple chores every once in a while, but those chores are teaching them the importance and the value of hard work and of being a part of a family unit. And then also we give them things, Kevin and I give them things to look forward to on the weekend. Every Saturday morning I make a big breakfast, bacon, eggs, homemade cinnamon rolls, or store-bought cinnamon rolls, or pancakes. They look forward to that. That's like a family tradition. And, or we may take them to go somewhere. So they know that weekends, Friday night hits, it's a game changer. But during the week, this is what we have to do to feed you. You want a toy? You want a toy? You want a new Xbox game? We got to
Right.
work for it.
You got to work for it.
So
Yeah.
That's
No,
awesome.
I want to
Go ahead,
swing back around a bit. Yeah. On Carol's question, on flexible schedule and all, right. I think the way to work around this really is, yes, to have a schedule, but the flexibility actually lies in your own head.
Yep.
Because the thing with kids, right, as we all have learned, Aldric will learn soon, scheduling messes you up. You cannot schedule a child. All your best plans, your best layout plans will go array all the time
All of them.
with kids,
Yeah.
right?
All of them.
So the flexibility is up here. You have to be patient.
Yes.
You need to be able to not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
I do a lot, but I always have to remind myself not to sweat the small stuff. So definitely go ahead, schedule, but always maintain that flexibility and that patience within you, because the best laid plans will go messed up all the time, every time. Okay, so that's the piece of advice. I wouldn't say it's a suggestion, but that's the piece of advice. And coming back to Kevin's question, right? The reason why I am, very free and easy, kids do whatever it wants, because I was brought up that way. My parents didn't have that much time with me because both of them working really hard. When I was much younger, I had my grandma watch after me, but she doesn't really do much. So I really have a lot of time on my own. I got to figure out things myself. I didn't have any, gaming stuff back then, right? So a lot of things, it's really about keeping myself entertained. And I was sharing with Jennifer in our chat group. In the past, I would never go to my grandma or my parents and say, "Mom, Dad, I'm bored." But that happens all the time now. I guess it's with the digital stuff. But the point is, I think because of the way I was brought up, I needed to figure things out myself. Maybe that may be a little bit more sensible. I'm not sure. Unsupervised parenting sort of worked for me in a way, because I had to figure things out on my own. I know a lot of things what you're talking about really is about consequences, right? I know what consequences is, because I needed to figure things out myself. If I don't do my homework today, I figure out I'll face the consequences tomorrow. I can hand them up, and my parents will know I'll fail or whatever. So I got that worked out at a young age, I guess, partly because of the free and easy parenting style that was given to me. I don't know if that will work with my kids, because I think my wife is on the other spectrum, right? So there's always this conflict. But I think no matter what, if we ground this back to parenting, whatever the situation, there's always a lesson to be learned. I think the key thing about parenting is to make the best of the situation and teach that lesson, point it out to your kids. I think that will help, no matter how good or bad that lesson could be. Like what Kevin mentioned, you're just creaming your kid on the game, but the lesson there could be, you need to know how to take a loss, or the lesson there could be, hey, Dad's been playing this for the past 40 years, whatever, right? You need time, play with someone your own level of skill or whatever, So it depends on what lesson you could point them out for them to learn. And I think that's key. That's the best way we can make use of every situation, because really parenting is making best use of what you have, and teach the kids the lessons and the values. Yeah.
There's no guidebook. I mean,
I think I'll just address this based on my own experience, because I was very fortunate to grow up in pretty much an extended environment between sharing my time with my mom and my mom's sister, which is my aunt. She's very endearing to me, although she's very tough, she's very strict, and she's no nonsense. She's an entrepreneur. So every weekend, when I do go over, I can see the difference. So Jennifer spoke about diversity, work ethic, and I totally appreciate that. I saw that when I was very young. My parents are working parents, so they subscribe to the notion of a 9 to 6, and after that stay at home, do chores, watch TV. I see that from Monday to Friday. On the weekends when I'm with my aunt, it's a different world. She gets up before I do. When I was much younger, I got up about 7. She's up and working by then. At 10 p.m., when I'm about to expire to sleep, she's still working. So I saw that right in front of me. It was like a front row seat. And I was like, okay, so working hard in itself is actually a very flexible definition, and it's very individual, and that is really up to the individual. And to Jeremy's point and Carol's questions on structure, I think it's very difficult to have structure on top of an existing structure. What do I mean by that? When we are starting with a timetable, isn't it? It kills us. It killed me. I could see what's going on in school for the entire day, and I know that the second lesson I'm gonna die in spirit because it's history. The third lesson is this, and I'm gonna die because like I have no affinity with that, right? So it's a structure. And when my mom told me that when you're home you gotta do this, I'm like it doesn't speak to me. It really didn't. So but I'm very curious. So when I was struggling with my mathematics, I hope it's helpful for the parents here. When I was struggling with mathematics and I was at my aunt's place, the environment that we are in is very important because we play within our environment. So I saw in her office, there's this very funny terminal. Timothy can resonate. It's called a Bloomberg terminal. So I was like, what's this? And I go around and start to feel, oh my gosh, this is so complex. And then out of the blue, boom, there's a graph, right? I was like, wow, this is fascinating. And then the thing can move. I was like, okay, so what's this? And what's this? And then I was shouting to my aunt. I was like, Aunt, I don't understand this. Can you explain this to me? And she's like, of course you don't understand. You can't even do your basic elementary mathematics. How are you going to understand this advanced stuff? Go do your homework. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. So I was there, start doing my homework, but it still didn't help. Then after that, she was telling me, she'll point me to some of her books. Like, I asked, Aunt, what is return on equity? I said, read that book, read that book, read that book. So I would just go and figure things out on my own. And that was when I was in secondary school, middle school, I think for middle school. Yeah, so I think I went on that way. Curiosity really drove the way I learned, and that every time when I'm interested in something that's way more advanced, it typically helps me to deal with the things that I have to do at my level. Like, I don't really see any form of intrinsic value understanding straight line equations like y equals mx plus c. But if I have to apply it on finance, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Right, I better go get my things done so that I can comprehend what's going on. That's one thing. And to Sergio's initial question on the digital native, I think it's not about the time spent. It's really about the word consumption. What are we consuming? Are we consuming things that propels us to become a better person? Are we consuming things such that we can understand the way in which the world has evolved and where our future opportunities are? I would say, and I think I can hear my aunt's voice ringing in my head, that don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. Everyone has a phone. Everyone has access to the beer bottles at the coffee shops. It's what you do with it.
That's right.
I can imagine her telling me that. So don't be stupid. I mean, like, if you think that spending time with your phone just means that you're wasting your time away, what about those people who's producing content, bloggers, influencers, those doing product endorsements? They aren't stupid. They have the exact same tools as us. So I think the thing is, there's nothing to do with spending too much time with our devices or online, but rather, what are we doing with that? So that's my point.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say on this, there's no guidebook, right? None of us have the right answers. Right. It's all very much in the hands of you as a parent and the child themselves, and you have to go with it. And the one thing I'll say is, like, if my daughter says, hey, Dad, can we do this? Can you spend time with me? Can we have tea time? Even if I don't want to, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Yeah. Because in that moment, she needs that, or she wouldn't be asking for it. Right. So, and she'll ask specifically, can we play with Aunt Minnie? She has like a Minnie Mouse doll, and I'll do a little Minnie Mouse voice, and she's like, can we play with Aunt Minnie? Or can we have tea time? okay, cool, let's do it. Because in that moment, she wants and needs that. And if I can't do it, I'll say, look, you got to wait until X. I have to do this call. As soon as I'm done, we'll do it. But if she asks for it, they're looking for that attention from us. But I try to make it.
That's good.
That's really good.
Autonomy and follow through.
TaJuanna, what about you? What was your parents like? Your upbringing?
So my dad, I think I previously mentioned my dad was U.S. Army. Almost didn't count. Either you did it or you didn't, right? You achieved the mission or you failed, period. My mom, on the other hand, she was more grace. Now she had her limits, and you knew what boundaries to and not push, but she had more grace. She's like, you did, your effort was good, honey, or you could have did a little bit better. And she's got no filter, so she'll let you know if it sucks. She might not say it sucked, but she'll be like, it wasn't your best, But they were really good about structure with autonomy, right? They didn't always tell you how to do it. They told you they told us. My brother and I have an older brother. We're almost 6 years apart. They told us what they expected, when they expected it, but I remember them always giving us the autonomy on how to do it, because there is always more than one way, right? So, and that's something I find myself mimicking with my daughter. Like, there's more than one way to get it done. I'm not concerned with how you get it done unless you're hurting yourself. And if you're hurting yourself, let's find another way. But this is what needs to be done, and this is when it needs to be done. So I'll set a timer even. And my parents, same thing. Like, they were very, hey, this needs to be done. Don't you leave this house without making your bed in the morning, right? Like, there were certain rules that you knew not to push. But then they also gave the creativity. I don't ever remember growing up feeling like, or as an adult looking back on my childhood and being like, why did my parents push me to do this? Or why did my parents make me do that? I was always in something. I was always involved, and I was a Girl Scout from like kindergarten to my my junior year of high school. Like, I was in band with the color guard. I was cheerleading. I did track. I was always in something, and I understand that doesn't happen for everyone, but my parents understood idle time and what it can do for a person, what kind of rabbit holes it can lead them down if the curiosity isn't cycled in a healthy way or in a constructive way. So my parents, they did believe in order. They did have structure. They also gave us the autonomy to decide how to get it done in whatever way worked for us. And my brother and I were very different. You would think we had different parents, but we didn't, but we learned, they let us learn the way we learned. They let us function the way we function, as long as we did it within the expectation. So yeah, that's really my upbringing. That's how I find myself functioning, and I'm recovering from that whole perfectionism mindset as an adult. Motherhood really broke me of it. Motherhood was like, almost does count. I packed the baby's bag last night. I cannot help it that as soon as we walk out the door, she had a diaper blowout that went all the way to the back of her hair. And we just have to start over, right? Like, wipes can't fix that. You've just got to dump the baby in the tub and start over. I tried. My intentions were good. I'm just going to be late. I don't know what else to tell, So it really helped me become more flexible, because I did grow up planning and with the mindset of plan this, have a plan for that. And even with being a project management professional, I believe in a plan, but be flexible. It's not a guarantee, but it is a roadmap, right? You wake up and decide you're going to go to a store of your favorite kind today. You hit a detour. You don't just say, "I'll forget it," and go home.
Yep.
You take the alternate route, right? So that's the same thing with our dreams, with our realities, with our work, with our parenting. What other way can we achieve whatever it was that we intended to be pursuing and still get the outcome that we intended or that was needed for that moment, for that season, for that, whatever the case may be. So yeah, being present and autonomy is key.
TaJuanna, I wanted to hop on something you brought up, how you and your brother are different. I mean, in the same way, I think Kevin and Jennifer can relate to this. Your kids are different too.
Yep.
If you have more than one, you realize that your kids are different. And for me, my son and my daughter are quite different in the sense that my son needs that structure. He needs to know what's happening at this time, that time, this time, right? But my daughter is, free and easy, whatever. So a plan might work for your kid, it might not work for your kid. So it all depends on how well you know your kid as well. So you need to customize, how you parent depending on the nature and the personality of your kid. And I think that's also quite important. That's just wanted to add on to that.
And I think it's true too, because at all level, it all depends on perspective, right? Teaching your kids to be able to have perspective, since our show's called Bottoms Up Perspective, right? I think, even me and my sister, we grew up in the same family, but our perception is very different of the way we grew up, even though we have the exact same parents who did the exact same things. And so our perspective matters so much in what we do every single day, right? Even in business, right? You can have two employees with the same boss, and they can have a total perspective of your management. So I think is having that right mindset, having that right perspective. And as parents, we can help guide that narrative depending on, like what Jeremey and TaJuanna said, depending on your child, is actually understanding that child. So, and I think you guys can all relate, because a lot of us are coaches, managers, business owners, right? It's the same thing when it comes to business. Since we're on LinkedIn here, I think when you're working with a business, you have to understand that business and how their culture is and how they are managed from the top down, the hierarchy. And that's how you go decide on a marketing strategy. That's how you go decide on a sales, how you go about your sales and outreach. And same thing with project management. Right? And kids are the exact same way.
They are.
Now, every kid is going to be different within your family organization, and how they fit in. You have to figure all that out. And as the leader, you have to guide them, or you're going to be blindfolded going, running into stuff, And I think a lot of us are professionals, and you do this day in and day out at work. But now you can take that home and do the exact same thing. We got reverse engineer, right?
Kevin, there's a key difference though. You can fire your employees.
But you can't fire your kids, and they can't fire you. You're all stuck together.
Like it or not. Exactly.
In the States, though, when they're 18, you can kick them out.
But you gotta worry when you are 18, they will kick you out.
Oh man,
that's awesome.
I love that term, customized parenting, though. I think that's really, really important. And that people try to, it's good to read books. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to draw from different resources that are credible, and that you've, learned to respect who they are in our society. I have one in particular, that's a psychologist for families that I love to follow. I love to read his books. But at the same time, you have to break it down for like what you guys were saying, for what works for your child. There's some that are more sensitive and have more needs to be cuddled, to be touched, or to be played with. So for me, I have an awesome childhood with a very bleak perspective of it. So I know that doesn't make a lot of sense. But my parents and I did not connect on a deep level. They did not understand my needs. They didn't know how to meet my needs, but they loved me. And so I didn't really get anything that I needed from my parents. In fact, quite the opposite. However, it wasn't a bad childhood. And my sister had a completely different experience than I did. My mother was a very stern, like a very structured, a very, Kevin, how would you describe her?
Sure, you want to ask
Kevin,
you throw me on the bus.
Kevin, it's a trap.
She was a perfectionist nature, very critical. Everything needed to be a certain way or needed to be perfect. She got that from her dad. It wasn't her fault. She was also brought up like that in a very extreme way. So she was very stern. I'm very free spirited, very more like I like artsy, creative, flexible. So she was everything in that regard opposite of me. And anyway, but now being a mom, and that's something that's really like touched my heart as I'm listening to you guys, is because when I was little, I didn't understand why. I just knew I desperately wanted my parents' attention, and I wanted my mom to get down and play with me. She never did once, not even one single time. And I remember asking and asking and asking, and I could never understand why cleaning the house was more important than playing with me. And I realized, and she would always say, well, I'm right here. I can see you. She was a stay-at-home mom, so she was always there, but then not really. She's always busy. She's present, but not, or she's there, but not present. She went back to school and got her college degree, which I was very proud of her. I thought that was a wonderful thing, even when I was growing up, that she finished her bachelor and that she was doing what she was passionate about, which was music. But wow. I'm playing on the floor, and she's playing piano for 3 hours a day, the same song over and over, which literally drove me crazy. I used to hate the piano. I got over it though. And I would be like, well, Mom, can you just play with me? Can you get down here? Well, I can see you. I can see you. Okay, that's supposed to make me feel better. I can see you too, but I'm not interacting. But as a kid, you don't know why you feel that way. You just feel bad. And when I got older, I go, Mom, I feel really bad. I don't know why. I just have such a hard time playing with my kids and really get down and imagining. And I just don't know why I have such a hard time. Oh, just let them know you can see them, that you're right there, that you're there with them, you're paying attention. And all of a sudden it clicked in my mind. That's where I had heard that, and that's what she had done to me. And now that's what comes naturally. It was a learned behavior. And my older son, who's a lot like me, he takes that personally. If you don't play with him, it's very personal. My other one, he would rather just snuggle all the time. He's not as worried about playing, because he can play with his older brother. But each child is different in what they need, and they can really take it to heart if you're not meeting that particular need. And my parents are wonderful. My mom's changed a lot, and she's one of my best friends now. But I see where I can carry on from this point and do some things differently than when I was growing up, and make sure that those needs are met, because it really does affect you as an adult if your needs are met as a kid. So
that's good.
Yeah,
it's very true.
I can resonate with that, Jennifer. As you were recounting your experiences, I think it dug up a lot of things that is deep within me. Because it's a blessing that I'm very close to my aunt, but at the same time there are multiple sides, right? It kind of created a natural rift between my mom and myself, because once I started accepting the kind of lessons that I am willing to absorb from my aunt, it becomes very easy for me to repel what my mom has been telling me. So in a way that if there are many perspectives and dimensions in life, like you can pursue the route of an employee or an entrepreneur or an independent consultant, I'm very drawn to this idea that I can build a business from scratch. And my parents are working parents, so they think that the way up there is to earn as much as possible in the highest paying profession. I feel you, Jennifer. I do. And I it's just me, like my whenever I meet my parents for dinner, now I hold back. Like there are times where I really don't agree with what they say, but I'm no longer that pointed because I think that's just what life is. We are all different. Some of us seek security. Some of us seek our realization of our ambitions. Right? It's just that when we subscribe to different value systems, I mean, like the clash, it's natural. Giving in a conversation doesn't mean that we are giving our ambitions away. I don't know how to better say this, but I do feel you. I do. And I sometimes when I reflect deep into the night, when I was thinking about my aunt, I also think that it's a very sad thing because there's a lot of things that I want to say, and the first person that I'll think of is my aunt, it's not my mom. So I think that's real. That's real.
That's good.
Yeah, that is really good, Aldric. Thank you.
I think realistically, you know, as parents, it's our duty to really try to meet the needs of our kids, and not their wants. It's not to say that, hey, I want something and we're going to give it to them, right? It's their needs. If a kid's asking you for something like their attention and your affection, there's probably something within them that's calling to them. Now, they can have it 24/7, right? Because obviously we all have to work. We're all working professionals. But, you know, if they know you're busy and they're asking for something, something's going on, and I think it's important as parents to pay attention to that. And I think, you know, especially, I feel you guys too, because, you know, my dad was not that present either. He was a great dad, you know, loved me to death. And he's, you know, since I've grown up, he's awesome. You know, my biggest supporter. But that being said, as a kid, he wasn't quite there. You know, there was no catch, there was no video games, there was no nothing. He supported, which that was his job. He got me to the goal line, right? He got me to the goal line. It's on you to do the rest. But the reality is, yeah, I mean, you know, I think for kids, there's a measure of figuring it out that goes into that, but there's also a measure of, hey, we remember stuff like that. And I think as parents, you don't want your kids to remember that. I don't think that's a good feeling. I think all of us that are feeling that way, it's something that resonates. It sits there with you, you know? It doesn't quite go away, as you can all tell. I mean, I'm 37. I think we're all past 30 on this conversation.
Over 30.
It's 29. I haven't quite reached the 30s yet. Sorry.
21.
I don't want to go back personally. I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, I mean, we don't want to do that to our kids, you know. So I think it's important to pay attention to what the kids' needs are, you know, and make sure that we're getting them what they need, not what they want, what they need. And if we get them what they need, then there's not too much after the fact that they're gonna remember, you know, except the good times, which is what we want.
So does your kids ever guilt trip you? That's been the hardest thing for me is I'll give them a little bit of time that I have, or I'll take some time to play with them for a little bit, you know, and really push myself out there. And then my oldest or you know, or my youngest, they'll throw a fit as soon as I can't anymore, you know, and they make me feel so guilty. Well, you lied. You said you would do this and that. And it's like, but I did just do this and that. Well, you didn't do it for very long. And I'm just like, but that's what I have to give, you know. And I've had people in that profession say, well, if you could just stop and give your kids, you know, 15 minutes here and there. Oh no, my kids don't want 15 minutes. They want 2 hours. Okay. Yeah, no. So now they don't care to go outside the house. They don't seem to care that much about, you know, friends for the most part. I mean, sometimes they talk about it.
Not yet.
They want mom to play or dad to play with them for 2 hours. They don't want 15 minutes of attention. Well, I guess I don't know, but
it's really cool, mom.
I don't know about that, but
I don't know.
I get the guilt trips. I mean, I think, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Your daddy.
I then put up the boundary. You know, when the guilt trip comes, if she's like, hey, I wanted you to play, and we played, and it wasn't for 2 minutes, it was for a while. you got to put up the boundary and just be like, look, like, okay, I have to do stuff. Like, okay, dinner has to be made. That's it. Like, no, it's dinner.
Yeah.
The boundary has to go up. It is what it is. And they can't get mad. They could guilt trip. She can guilt trip me on what she wants. I'm like, look, I did my part. That's it. Boundary time.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. Like, I'm cooking. It's 5 o'clock. You're not going to eat at 7 o'clock at night. So that's it. And, you know, she'll get over it. She respects it. I think kids also, they push the limits. So, you know, my daughter is definitely a boundary pusher. No question.
Yeah.
She will push.
Like you.
Yeah. She gets apple don't fall far from, too far from the tree. It's true.
Timothy, I'm so glad to hear that though, because like I mean I know that my kids are not the only kids that do that, but it's nice to hear someone else say that, because you know, they'll be like, I'll be, you know, we've been working during the day, so they haven't gotten a lot of attention. They're like, well, you promised to play, you know, after dinner. And I'm like, well, we just finished. Who's, you know, someone's got to clean this up, or we're going to have little bugs, you know, coming and you know, into our house. I said, you got to clean up stuff. And then finally I'll get upset and I'll just go, you know what? I'm going to go play and you guys clean up. I'm fine with that. You want to, you know, you want me to play that bad? You clean it up and I'm going to go play, you know? And I don't really make them do that, but I make them think about it, because they just, I have one that's like, he's a master at trying to push the boundaries. I mean, he is just, if he could make you feel so guilty that you cried, of course, then he would feel bad. But I mean, he really pushes it. Takes after Kevin. I'm just joking.
I have two perspectives to this, right? Number one thing is this. I think it's a good thing that your kids want to play with you. My kids do sometimes, but they don't guilt trip me. But the point is that think about this. I'm guilty of this too, but I don't play that often with them because of whatever excuses or reasons, work and all that, real life challenges. But think about it. They are probably only going to ask you to play with them till they are, what, 12, 15? Then you're not cool. So the time is limited. Cherish that, right? So that's one point. Then the second point is sometimes I do the guilt trip back. I know this is a bit bad and evil, but I'm trying to, you know, score some, get some browning points in the bank, put it that way. So I will go things like, okay, remember you asked me to play with you. I always say yes. So next time when I'm old and, you know, lonely, when I ask you to come and visit me, will you visit me?
That's right.
That's good.
I like it.
Bank in the favor now. I don't know. It's maybe I'm evil. Maybe I overthink things. But you know, bank in that. Get them recall that, right? I think that helps because the point is that most of the time when we were kids, we never understood how our parents work or think. But now that we are parents, we understand so much better. We can empathize so much better how our parents were like. And then we see both sides, right? We begin to appreciate our parents even more. So I guess, think further ahead. And those are just the two things I wanted to share.
And I will hop in. I think it's interesting because just listening to everyone's upbringing, right? So I have Asian parents as well. So I was definitely, So, but I grew up in the States, right? So I think it's interesting because Jeremy brought up a good point. I think Asian parents a lot of times they always tie it into when they get older and if you're going to take care of them, right? So like, growing up, my parents always they always challenge me with when I get older, you know, am I going to live with you, or are you going to buy me this car? Or there's always this, you know, and then I start talking to Jennifer and I noticed, because she has Caucasian parents and they're more independent. They're on their own. Like, you grow up, you leave the house, you do your own thing. It's not like, you know, it's a little different. You know, they don't have the expectation where they live with you, right? So like even after my dad passed, my mom lived with Jen and I for years, you know? So, I mean, it's just a different perspective. And so me growing up is the same thing, you know? I had Asian parents that worked all the time, right? So my dad, you know, worked for people, and then he was an entrepreneur, and we immigrated from Hong Kong. And then my mother You know, she went from stay-at-home mom in Hong Kong to working every day. So pretty much from 7 on, I had total freedom. It was just me and my older sister. So she's 7 years older than me, but she didn't even, she technically watched after me, but I actually had all freedom, right? Because she's a teenager and she was doing her own thing. And my parents are always at work. So I learned to kind of entertain myself, you know? So like at a very young age, and a lot of immigrant families in the States maybe is similar. Like my parents weren't very good with English. So like the kids, we were actually better at communicating, you know, in America than our parents were. So at a young age, I started helping my parents fill out all the government forms, all the taxes and everything. So yeah, so you just start learning all this stuff, right? And it's funny because even though we had all the freedom, and I think it's because of the Asian parenting, my parents just pretty much told us, here are the consequences, right? Okay, you go sleep around, you're gonna get pregnant, and then they give you like all this negativity of like, okay, you go end up with a kid and your life is over, and it's all this stuff, right? So everything was tied to like consequences. Okay, but I had total freedom, right? Because they weren't there, you know. But what was really neat was I noticed no matter how busy my parents were, especially my mom, they would come back because like they own restaurants, right? Typical Chinese immigrant family. My dad and mom, they worked up by 10 p.m. But when they come home, my mom would always spend a lot of time with me talking. So we just talk a lot about life, philosophies of life, and different things like that, right? So I think, you know, after listening to all of you, I think at the end of the day is it really depends on your home. And I think all your kids want is just you, you know, and it's not always like doing an activity. They just want your time. And honestly, it's just like, it could be watching a movie, but they want you to be present, you know, not they want your time while you're looking on the phone, you know, they want you to be present. So I think that's one of the key things. So that's my take. But I want to finish tonight with one last question. So if you had, so with the pandemic going on, where do you see the future of the younger generation? You know, how much is this going to affect them as a parent? What are your concerns? As someone single, Aldric, where do you see the future generation? I want to hear from you guys, and that's what I want to end with.
I'll start on this one. So I would say, you know, look, you got to pay attention to, I guess, Gen Z right now, right? Because realistically, that's the closest thing to the young adult that we all know. And Gen Z is very big on social media. So I think obviously we're all on social media. I mean, we all have met through social media. We all have our own personalities on social media, right? It's just, to me, I think it's embracing social media, is paying attention to what social media is out there. Don't be naive about it. But, you know, for the foreseeable future, I can't see much changing except maybe new platforms coming out. Obviously, TikTok has come out. That's where the kids are spending their time. So knowing what's going on and what they're doing on their social media. And to be honest with you, I mean, you can kind of embrace it because it's a window into the world that my parents didn't have. I mean, when I got in trouble, I got in some pretty messed up trouble. And they didn't know because there was no social media. There was no, it was like I was out and about and there's no record of it, right? So, you know, right now, your kids, you put something on their phone, they checked in here. Okay, cool. I know where my kid is. You know what I'm saying? You have Find My iPhone. You have all these cool features that we can keep track of our kids. So I think, you know, I mean, technology has made it so that I think for the kids, pay attention to what they're doing on social media. You know, don't discourage them, but also give them some guidelines, especially because, again, I feel like we're all social media parents. So I think it's, you know, pay attention to what they're doing, give them guidelines, tell them not to, excuse my language, not to act like an asshole in public. Because the reality is, I mean, you know, that's going to prevent them from getting a job and doing things like that.
Yeah,
but it's, you know, like, don't be stupid on social media, to quote Aldric. But, you know, like, pay attention to what your persona is, but embrace it. You know, it's a great tool. I mean, Gen Z, some of the kids on Gen Z, I mean, there's 20-year-olds who are millionaires.
Right.
And that opportunity was not available to us growing up. So, you know, I think you have to embrace a lot of this and look at what it is for today. And like I said, just be cognizant of it. Don't like be naive. Be cognizant of it. You can encourage it. Just tell them not to be stupid. That's my take.
That's good.
I'll go next. It's very scary to think about the future. I mean, we can't even think about our future, right? What about our kids? It's very, very, very worrying and very scary. I don't know. I can't think of this enough, and yet at the same time, I don't want to think of it enough. Very conflicting. I can be an optimist and a pessimist at the same time. So I do not know what's coming, because if you're just talking about a pandemic, maybe that will pass, maybe it won't. But you have other bigger problems, right? Global warming. You know, do your kids know how to swim? If the water levels rise and they got no place to go, can they at least stay afloat? What about other? Yeah, what about other things like AI? You know, will there even be jobs for them? Right?
Hey, your future daughter-in-law, you know, is gonna be AI.
Robot. It's a huge question. It's $1 million question, $1 billion question. I really don't know, but I think what we need to consider is what we can guide or teach our kids to do. I do think that at least in Singapore, the education system is something I do not necessarily agree with. They teach you the basics, but I don't think they teach you how to survive in life or in the future, where it's so, you know, we call that VUCA, right? Volatile, complex. I can't remember the U and the A, ambiguity and something. So maybe U stands for unprecedented. I don't know, the most used words these days. I think we need to prepare our children. I think what's most important to prepare really is number one, they need to be accountable for themselves. I think that's one very important thing. And number two, really, they need to be able to have some form of critical thinking. Not do what everyone tells you. Okay, that's a little bit conflicting again, because I want them to do what I tell them, but at the same time, tell them don't let the world trick you into doing things. Think for yourself. Always think beyond what people are telling you. I think those are two things would prepare and hopefully help them conquer whatever future they could have, because it's just too crazy out there. Really, I mean, at our age, do we think about AI, robots taking over our jobs, our lives? Do we think about global warming, you know, weather change and all that? It's really, really scary these days. I don't know how to prepare them, but those would be two things I hope I can work on. Yeah, that's from me.
Yeah, I do see a lot of opportunity. Everything that you've expressed, Jeremy, very, very real, right? Very real things, very practical things to consider. I do see a lot of opportunity. I hear your sentiments as far as like institutionalized education. I think there has to be a shift in the value we place on it, particularly in general, but I can speak for America, right? I'm here in the U.S. There has to be a shift. Yes, it's important. Yes, that we need to be able to be literate and all those things. Yet there are levels of experience that our youth are having that a college course, a semester, a quarter, whatever it is, bypassed it years ago already, right? Yeah. So it's like there's certain fundamental values that I think shifts that will need to be made. Even how I think about my daughter, you know, I grew up with the, you know, you go to school, get education, get a good job mindset. I never dreamed about entrepreneurship, you know, just I encountered it out of need. Even if I'm being honest, I encountered it out of need, not because it was something that I initially wanted to be doing, you know, back in 2008 when I first started the entrepreneurial journey. But even when I think about my daughter, I would love to be in a place, and I plan to be in a place where if she wanted to go to college, I want to afford it. I don't want her coming out of college with loads of debt. Yet if she decided not to, I can't see that being a huge, like, nowadays you can do whatever you want with it, right? Like you can do anything. Just,
oh, she's on camera now.
Say hi. Yeah, the headphones, I know it's been a while. But you know, it's just like I see a lot of opportunity and it's right at the fingertips. It's right at the fingertips. These keyboards, you know, yes, you have the keyboard warriors that aren't doing good with it, but then you have so many people that are using it for extreme benefits and not just greed, not just for self. So like you talked about, self-sufficiency is important. One thing that I teach my daughter is like you said, make decisions, make your own decisions. When you don't make them, someone will make them for you. So like even something down to shoes in the morning. I don't care what shoes you put on, as long as they're not the sandals, because you know you can't wear those to school. But if it's any closed-toe shoe you want to put on, but make a decision. When you don't make it, time's up, I'm making it for you. And I choose the ones that I know she least wants to wear so she can feel this is a fact, right? Like mommy's not just being cool. This is a fact. When you don't take the chance to make your choices will be made for you. And so she
may not like them.
and you will not like them, right? It's same thing as a parent, right? My ex-husband and I, we were very focused on, we might not have worked together as husband and wife, but when it comes to being her parents, we are focused. It is about her. We're not going to have a judge or anybody else tell us, right, what's in her best interest. We're going to figure it out and we're going to stick to it. And now we're in a place where we can be super flexible. Yet if either of us, like Aldric said, get stupid, there is a court order parenting plan that we can go back and follow, right? So that way we don't have to argue about it. But self-sufficiency and not being greedy and seizing opportunity when it's available to you. I think our youth need to understand that it is available to you in a way that, and I know when it's a norm, it's hard to think outside of your norm. Like there's some youth that like they don't realize smartphones didn't exist. They're like, what do you mean you didn't have smartphones, right? Because they were born with them. But understanding that opportunity is available is significant, and showing them, painting the picture and putting them in positions to feel that how good it is when you seize it and how not good it feels when someone has to choose it for you.
I just want to say I love that, TaJuanna. I freaking love that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I actually would like to come off of the tail end of that. I really didn't think I had any more to say, but well, when you know Jeremy is talking about AI and then you're talking about decision making, I realized that is something that Kevin and I try to do with our kids. Well, especially me, is I help them differentiate now. Your technology is just artificial. It's just entertainment. It's for the purpose of entertainment. It is not real. When we watch movies, I let them watch movies like superhero type movies that some families wouldn't feel comfortable with a 5-year-old watching. But I want to show you that what's going on behind the scenes in order to create this entertainment. We can have fun. We can watch it. It's awesome. But it's not real. And when you come off of that screen, what's real is your family. What's real is your responsibilities. What's real is having genuine relationships. And I think going into AI, and I love that social media is coming back around to, hey, let's be real, let's be authentic, because going into an AI generation, I feel people need to be able to differentiate. Children need to be able to differentiate. When I'm in this, it's artificial. When I'm doing this, it's real. And relationships, you still have to have those real connections. You still have to be a genuine, authentic person, which means knowing yourself, who you are. And then let's play AI just for fun. Just let's be entertained. But let's keep real and artificial separate. Let's understand the differences. Let's be able to differentiate.
Great point.
Okay, so my perspective, I think in order for us to thrive into the future, it's important to have perspectives that are all encompassing. And I think that's going to be very difficult, but I hope I'm going to make sense here, because if we play the paradigm of an employer-employee or entrepreneur and a job seeker, from the fence of an entrepreneur, you will understand why we embrace technology, because we have problems that we have to solve, which is what the business is for. And there are external problems that relates to sales, and there's internal problem that relates to efficiency. So like Tim and myself, one line of our business that we do, we are solopreneurs. It's crazy. There are tons of issues that we have to resolve every day, right? And therefore, we do Zoom to solve the problem of meeting many people at the same time. We have Calendly plugins. We have payment platform plugins so that we can be efficient. Now, if we were to scale up to a small business, we're not going to employ people to do those functions. Simply not, because that's not the way to do it, right? So in that sense, when I think about the job market, if we are building our skills for jobs that's there today, for our kids that's entering the workforce 5 years later, we are off pitch. Those jobs will go away, for sure, for real. Unemployment numbers are already climbing. I believe those jobs, they will disappear. In the past decade, those jobs moved. They didn't disappear. They moved from the first world to the developing and emerging markets. Today, they're done. So embracing technology, artificial intelligence is going to be the main challenger for sure. Because if I can get Alexa to do something for me, I'm probably not going to employ someone else to do it for me.
That's right.
As another example, if my robo vacuum can do the job for me, I'm not going to have a domestic helper. So I think
you're speaking Kevin's language right now, right?
Yes. So I think we
Robo mower.
That's
we are
his
at
next
our crossroads
purchase.
now.
Okay.
We are at our crossroads now in terms of thinking about our education and job market. And it is in my perspective that I think education and the job market takes a very long time to evolve. The curriculum that we have today is still very much into sciences and engineering. We have to ask ourselves that question, if the prospect for such jobs are still going to be there into the future, and if it is it going to bring us to a higher financial ability? I doubt. I seriously do. So I think the best way ahead today with the pandemic, not so much about the pandemic, but the impact of the pandemic on our global economy is the best way we can postulate into the future is to have the best and all-round exposure as an entrepreneur, as a professional, as an independent consultant, and as an employee. So you can see the big picture. That's what I think.
I just want to
Go ahead,
piggyback off this real quick. I think that is freaking, first of all, that's an excellent point, Aldric. I love it. I mean, it's seriously awesome stuff. And to piggyback off that, I think that's why authenticity and being real is so important. The one thing people cannot take away from you is yourself, right? And also why some of these, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's content creators that are completely bogus, right? You can't, I mean, it is what it is, right? There's no question about it. They use bots, they use all sorts of AI to help them become rock stars. And really they get like 5 likes, but they have 500 likes, right? But, you know, there's also authentic people who are really huge, and they got that way by being themselves. And so I think that's where authenticity, like, is going to be such a huge factor in the future, because again, like, your brand, your personal brand becomes that much more important because the jobs are not there. So you sometimes have to make for self. You have to do something for yourself that, you know, look, one of the main reasons I became an entrepreneur is you can't take my job away from me. You can't do it. It's done. You can't say you're fired. Nobody says that shit to me anymore. Nobody can say, hey, I can't pay you enough. Nobody does. And that was a very big driving force for me to become an entrepreneur. So I think it's very important, you know, in today's society. That's why authenticity is going to rule the day, because Aldric's 100% right. I mean, AI and some of these jobs and these companies that have been lost in the pandemic will never, ever come back. They're done.
I actually kind of have one more thing, and then I was going to ask a question too. So I think I have a great example of the difference between, I mean, tech is awesome, but it's going to have to get a lot better because it's not fail proof. The reason I say that, and this kind of ties in with the human aspect of keeping your job and of authentic relationships and really having that human contact in a world of technology and AI and all of those things. We have Google Home, and he was talking about how it's nice to just say, "Hey Google, do this," or "Hey Siri," or whatever, and it does it for you. It can turn your lights off, it can lock the front door, it can put your garage down. But nothing works better than when I tell Kevin to lock the front door compared to him standing there and trying 5 times to get Google to lock the front door. That gets annoying. And I know he thinks that's really fun, but I think it's incredibly annoying. And I would personally rather just ask him to do it or walk down and do it myself than listen to that. As much as I love him, as much as I love him, I'm trying to just use that as an example. Those technology things are really awesome, and when it actually works for him, it's great. But it can never replace the authenticity of a human being walking down and locking the door. It just I mean, they're going to have to get a lot better, because I mean, accent can get in the way. The way that you say things can get in the way of it doing its job. And I just, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to look 20 years from now. But that's just my personal opinion right now. Love technology, but, relationship is always first.
Yeah.
Kevin, let me break it down for you what Jennifer actually is saying, okay? Unless the robo lawnmower can do a great job better than you do, you are going to be moving along for a long time.
Jeremy, you understand.
The unspoken.
It's unspoken.
There's an easier message. Kevin, lock the effing door.
Well, but I understand what Kevin is doing.
Go down 3 stairs and
you
close
to do
it yourself. Okay, don't stand up at the top and tell it 5 times. Okay. Goodness. You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
So that's my goal, guys. I decided I want to automate everything from my office. So this is like the Starship Enterprise. And I just sit here and I can just do everything. Talk to clients, lock the door. Eventually, I can't get my wife to just take care of the kids. No, I'm just joking.
You guys are laughing, but he is not joking. Someday his office,
Feels like this is real life.
Our whole house will be completely automated. And what's funny is we can even see to close the door even from our phones. And we've still had some police officers show up in the middle of the night to tell us our garage door is open. So tech is awesome, but it is not fail proof.
Yeah. From a human services background standpoint, right? There are, when you're talking about eligibility and services, right, to our citizens, services to the economically disadvantaged, there's decision making that computer systems can't do because there's too much subjectivity. There are too many scenarios, right, that can happen in a family unit that would either make them eligible enough to get a meal or ineligible because they can afford, based on whatever standard. And so when we're talking about, like you said, technology, and even I remember reading and hearing on a podcast, even facial recognition, right, from a cultural standpoint, it is inaccurate the majority of time for minorities because the people that designed it didn't design it with our structure in mind, right?
I did not know that, but that is unacceptable.
right? But it's a reality. And so it's like, unless you have all of the factors, unless you can somehow, I'm learning about the binary numbers and all that stuff, unless you can make all of those things tick and tie and match up, you're always going to have, like you said, a fail in technology, because there's that human component. There's that subjective logic that technology hasn't been able to reach. And when it does, now that's scary. But there are some things that we still will have to have people for, especially when it comes to meeting basic human needs.
Yeah.
Totally
all the more.
Totally
Sorry.
with you, but I think, let me just summarize what I think Kevin is thinking. Let me just summarize.
Okay. Wow.
From a financial standpoint, all costs will be automated away. The focus is on the business, the revenue, and the relationships. I think that's the goal. It's not about having technology to replace every single touch point of our lives, but to really use it to tackle those things in our life that we don't really appreciate. So if we have more time to build deeper human relationships, I think technology is a very good friend. But do not mistake the kind of connections that you build on the online platform as like friends. Now, then I think that's dangerous. My point.
It's like the movie Her.
Well, let's just say this. If I have a Jarvis on a Friday as my OS, I'll be very happy. Okay, I don't want a shield. I don't want a hammer. I don't want it. I want a Jarvis somewhere, somehow helping me.
You are right about Kevin. I do have to give that. I have to give him some credit and give you some credit.
Just some.
No, I have to give you credit, because it is true. If Kevin can automate something to where it saves time to spend with his family, or it saves money, then that is why he does the things he does.
Yeah.
So you're very right. And I love making fun of him. I am not joking. We pick on each other all the time for fun, but you're right. And he's awesome like that.
And while we're talking about, the future, right? To me, personally, I think as humans, we're super resilient.
Yeah.
And I think we forget, I don't think there's much difference in the world today compared to the world yesterday. Because our great-grandparents, the people before us, they couldn't foresee social media. They couldn't foresee computers. And they went through Great Depression. They went through World War I, World War II. There was pandemics back then, so don't forget that, the Spanish flu, and they had no idea what's going to happen. People had measles, polio, and, kids couldn't talk to each other. And during that time, when you're in the storm, you don't see it, right? Until after the storm and looking back. Because if you talk to an older person today, an elderly, they're not near as fearful as some of the younger generations, because they've experienced things. And I think when we talk about the future, right, how it will be for our kids, they're going to be fine, because every generation before us came out fine. Now, are we going to go through some economic crisis? Will there be some people that we might lose during this pandemic? The answer is most likely yes, right? The numbers show it, right? But I think we're resilient people, and and as parents, since we're talking about the parenting, I think it's important to teach the future generation hard skills like gratitude, love, respect, and remember those who came before you. I think the biggest problem with the future generation that I am seeing, being someone that's, older now, of course in my 40s, so the thing is, I look back as people don't appreciate the people that came before them as much. You know, I don't see much Gen Z's giving credit to the generation before them.
Sure.
And that's a huge problem because every generation before gave credit to the people who paved the way for us.
Right.
You know, and we're losing that a little bit. You know, we aren't giving credit to the people. Like, I couldn't be on a computer talking to people across the world if it wasn't for the generations before us. You know, if it wasn't for the old-fashioned phone and, you know, huge televisions, do you think we'll have monitors and all this technology to talk to each other? The truth is no, you know? So I think as parents today, we need to raise kids to appreciate the past, not just appreciate the future.
Yeah.
Because it's the past that prepared us for tomorrow. And I think it's a scary thing, you know, and that's what scares me. The pandemics don't scare me. The technology don't scare me. What scares me is, where is the gratitude? You know, and as
And the respect.
As the world becomes more closer, because the technology, we're more connected, we're starting to lose the hard values, you know, like loving unconditionally, you know, building true friendships and relationships, you know, being able to interact like a human, you know, being authentic and genuine. And I think those are things that's good, you know, that's so important that we have to embrace for the future. And as parents, I think we have to remember we need to raise children that remember those things, because there are certain things, no matter how much technology gets involved, will not take away, right? I think as humans, we'll always need love. We'll always need relationships to thrive.
Yes. We're social beings.
Yep, we're social beings. And I just feel we can't take that away. And
I think to add to that, just something my parents did right is I feel like they really instilled in me a respect for, like what you were saying, the former generations, the older generations, old people, not being afraid or not looking down on them because they're old. Because we can really hear their stories and learn from them. And that polio story, I know. That polio story came from my grandmother, who's 83. And so for her, this is nothing. She's been through this before. She was a kid. They didn't even have any of the technology we have now. So they would use tin cans with strings to communicate because they had to keep the kids apart. They had to wear masks. That was the United States, 75 years ago. So this is nothing new. It's just new for us. And so if kids can really respect the older generation and spend time listening to their stories, it really helps our mindset and our perspective. We're not alone. We're not hopeless. Go ahead.
You hit something when you say the younger generation spend time listening to our stories. I think somewhere in between, right? Them, wherever that's just Gen Z and all that, wherever that starts, and prior to, the story stopped being told as well, right? So we have to take ownership as well to make sure that we are communicating these stories in that whole relationship aspect, right? Discipline without relationship breeds resentment, right? So that we're taking the time to express and communicate the significance of the past and how it has transitioned right into what it is that we have in the present and how it will continue to transform and whatever the future will unfold. But I think in the essence of our parents wanting us to have different, wanting us to have better, wanting us to do more than what they did, they stopped talking about the hardships because it was such a pain point for them. Right? Like with us now, we talk about what are your feelings and when you grew up, how did it make you feel? And
what's your passion?
We want to relate and all that stuff, right? Our parents didn't want to talk about the hard stuff. They just wanted to make it better. So we're not talking about it anymore because I don't want it to be that way. So they stopped telling the stories. And then in turn, we don't have the stories to tell our youth because we didn't hear them. So we have to be cognizant to not just say, you know, the younger generations lack respect, but we also have to make sure that we're instilling the essence. What is respect, right? Like if you had to bullet it down, what does respect look like? How does it feel? What does it mean? How do you demonstrate it? It has to be a part of our teaching. It has to be a part of the relationships that we're brewing in order for people to actually activate and function in that way. So I think a lot of history, you know, and whatever history means for individuals, I think a lot of the story for the respect to be upheld stopped being told.
See, and for
a gap.
Exactly. And for me growing up, you can't really do that right now during this COVID situation. But for me growing up, my parents would make us go to a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would take us. We would either go with our church, or we would go as a family, and we would play games with them. We would sing to them.
Yeah.
We would give to them, and we would also take the time to listen to them, to see that they are people who have grown old but are full of experiences. And like I said, right now we can't really take our children into those scenarios. We can't go into those scenarios, but I still take the time to call my grandmother and get to hear her stories. And it's funny because you actually really encouraged me, because I do that unknowingly. I make my kids listen to stories from all over the world, from my personal experiences and from other people's experiences of what's going on in the world. And they don't normally like it. They're not always receptive, but I force them. Yeah. This is the truth. This is what mommy experienced growing up. You want to complain about this? Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you before Apple was born. Let me tell you when computers weren't there or TV was black and white. Yes, I'm pretty old. But anyway, you know, you can't complain about being bored. You don't even know what boredom is. I can tell you what it means to be. I don't even know the right terminology for how bored you can be. Okay.
Right.
I've lived that, and I'm so thankful that you have things that you can do, but you're not bored. I'll just tell you that right now.
Bored to tears. Watch our paint dry.
I love what TaJuanna said. I think somewhere along the way, I think as parents, we focus so much more we become friends and we forget to be parents. And I think that's important. You know, there's a difference between being a friend and dancing with them on TikTok and actually being a parent.
Yes, it is.
You know, and your children need both. They need a friend, but they also need a parent.
Very much so. And more so a parent now than they have their schoolmates to be their friends, right? Cousins, things like that. Because right now they need guidance. They need the sense of safety, security. They just need, right, to be sure of something. And home is that sure place, whatever home may be, right? Whatever size it is, whatever it looks like, whoever's in it, home is that sure place that at the end of whatever this day is, at the start of this day, I know one thing's for certain, and that my heart belongs here, right? It's not an edifice, and we can't even put home in a person, because we will all die at some point in time, right? We don't know when that's going to be. So it can't be about an edifice, and it can't be about a being, but there's a sense of certainty. I think early on in the conversation, we talked about identity, right? I know me, African-American woman with a daughter, single, you know, mom by divorce. I teach my daughter, you are graced to have multiple homes. You have home with mommy and you have home with daddy. And if you're not with mommy and you miss mommy, or if you're feeling some type of way, guess who's got you, right? For me, faith and spirit, God's got you. And guess what you can do? Anything you can put your mind to, because whose daughter are you? Mine. Right? Like we put that identity factor, that stability, that sense of knowing, that assurance that even if you don't see mommy, like I know Jen talked about not wanting to take the kids to the dentist yet. We went through that. Her kindergarten screening, literally walked my daughter to the door and had to entrust her to this person because they're not allowing adults in. Same thing with the dental office. They checked us at the door, sat us down, and usually go back there with the kid, right? Here's a chair in the lobby. You can stay right there, ma'am. And if we need something, we'll come back. Communicated with my daughter about it. She said she felt so, but I said, if you need anything, remember who you are. And I'm just an ear call away. You open your mouth and speak. I always teach her, people can't help you if you don't communicate. So if you need something, you have to open your mouth and speak. If mommy's not going to always understand how you're feeling, so I'm going to ask, how do you feel? Because perhaps I might say, well, what's wrong? She might not be able to articulate it at 5. But if I say, how do you feel? And she says, well, I'm mad. Then I can ask more clarifying question. Well, what made you mad? Right? And then what about that? And what about that? So that communication factor, that relationship factor, that assurance, that identity, that a sense of security that I'd rather confess than conceal, because then I can get help with what I need is so important. And I know that really drives our relationship, the relationship she has with her father and their family, and just everything about who she's shaping to be. I don't know who she'll ultimately become, but the little person that I see her evolving into at this point, I am like, that's my kid. And there are no other 2 parents that could have been appointed to bring this life into fruition. Like, I know we were designed for her and she was appointed to us. So stewardship, just really giving that grounding, that anchoring in that sense of being is key as well.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Can I just wrap that? Yeah, sorry, Tim. Can I just wrap that all up? Because TaJuanna, you've just been so inspiring to me. I think I just want to wrap this up with this, right? It's very important, parenting, being a hybrid parent or not, because if you're there, your kids will build their self-confidence. And that self-confidence is very important, because that's what builds resilience. Yeah. I just wanted to round it up, because what you just said inspired me so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Man, I appreciate all of you, and thank you for the audience that stuck around with us, all this time. There was a lot of good, inspiring words that came out of tonight. And I know it's 10 p.m. here in the U.S. and probably
11 a.m.
morning, right? And so join us for episode 21. We go talk about employee engagement, and I appreciate all of you, and thank you so much. And remember, we all understand parenting is not easy during this time, and actually, it was never easy, right? Because there's no playbook. Yep. So don't ever be guilty, man. Just roll with it. And hey, be sure to add all of us if you aren't following us, and if you ever need to message us. I'm sure we all love being authentic and building relationship. So we'll respond, and that's what we're all about. So see you on episode 41, same bat time next week. Later.
Bye,
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, TaJuanna.